Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Lazy Lab Hunt Club podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Mike Ergo, and we have returning guests, Lieutenant Colonel Oakland McCollouch, and we're here talking about Chapter 2. It's not about you, it's all about you. And we want to get right into it. So, sir, let's go right after it. About the title, It's Not About You, It's All About You. What does that mean?
Thanks for having me, Mike. I really appreciate it. I get asked all the time. So when they read that or when I say that to people, they say, well, Colonel McCollouch, how can it be not about me and all about me? And I say, look, it's really simple. It's not about you in what title you get or what privileges you get, or that you get better pay and you get to live in a nicer house and drive a nicer car. And let's face it, leaders get those things sometimes, and that's okay, as long as that's not the reason you want to be the leader. If that's the only reason you want to be a leader, then you need to go find something else to do, because you're never going to be a good one. I can just tell you. So right. Those aren't the reasons to want to be a leader. The reasons to want to be a leader, the reason it is all about you, is how you treat the people that you have a privilege, and it is a privilege to get to lead people, and how you run your organization. That's what leadership is about, because leadership is about people. You know, I'm a firm believer that that's all leadership is about. And if you understand that, you can lead any organization. I don't care what it is. And I prove that. I mean, I did 23 years as a combat arms officer in the Army, was successful at that. And then when I retired, I ran a food bank for 2 years. And I mean, you don't get any difference than that. A combat arms officer running a food bank, that's 180 degrees difference. So, but if you understand it's about people, then you can lead anybody in any organization.
So we're looking at highlighting the skills of the people that you're leading. We're looking at taking care of the people you're leading. We're looking about, I've heard the term servant leadership. Does that apply to what you're talking about, sir?
Absolutely. I believe in servant leadership 100%. You know, there's that quote that if service is below you, then leadership is beyond you. And I absolutely believe that. It's about empowering the people that you are leading to be a better person. John Wooden, which is one of my favorite leadership books, and people are always amazed when I say that. My favorite leadership books we're nothing about the military. Right. John Wooden, probably one of the best, well, certainly one of the best college basketball coaches ever, but he was also one of the best leaders ever. And he understood it was about people. It wasn't just about making a good basketball team, although he did that. It's about making those people on those teams, those young men that he had the privilege to coach and lead, making them better people and empowering them to be better citizens in this country of ours and make good decisions. And that's what it's about, is empowering people to be the best version of themselves, whatever that's going to be.
And in a sense, it sounds like we're leading to the idea of raising or fostering future leaders by showing them the example and elevating them so they have the opportunity to do the same. Am I right there?
Yeah, I think, one of the main things that a leader has to do is set the example for the people that you're leading. And you really are the moral, ethical, and lawful compass of the organization that you lead. And people who don't understand that, that's part of the problem in this country today, right now, and probably the world, is that leaders don't understand that they really are that compass that keeps that organization and the people in that organization doing the right thing and doing good things. I always tell people, look, the people who work for you are just like your kids. They're going to do what you let them do. If you let them do bad things, they're going to do bad things. If you hold them to a standard and make them meet that standard and do good things, then they will do good things. And I always use the example when I took over my mortar platoon when I was a senior first lieutenant. In the Army, you inventory everything when you take over, and you got to sign for everything. And so we were missing a pair of binoculars. And I told, first meeting I had with my senior NCOs, I said, okay, we got to find those binoculars because we need them to do our job. And we all have this guy. Every organization has this person. I call him the scrounger, that person that can find anything. I don't care what you need. They'll find it for you. And I knew who mine was in this organization. And about 2 weeks after I took over, I came into work one morning, and guess what was sitting on my desk? A set of binoculars.
Yeah, right there, huh?
But, luckily in the Army, we serial number everything. I looked at the serial number, and guess what? Those weren't our binoculars. And I went to the guy that I knew was the scrounger, and I said, okay, where'd you find them? Whose are these? And he says, you don't want to know. And I said, yeah, I really do want to know. And he said, no, you really don't want to know. I said, well, take them back. Wherever you got them, it's not ours. Take them back. And he said, well, you said we needed to find our binoculars. I said, yeah, our binoculars, not somebody else's. So what kind of message would have been sending to the people I'm leading if we'd kept those binoculars? It's okay to steal as long as you benefit from it.
Right.
We got to get back to producing leaders who understand that leaders do what is right because it's the right thing to do. Even if it doesn't benefit you, you still got to do the right thing. And that's part of the problem that we have with our leadership in this country today right now.
And what does it look like when leaders aren't doing the right thing or they're not setting that example? I mean, what are some of the common breakdowns you see in organizations, sir?
Yeah, you see people doing bad things. You see people, leaders and senior people in organizations taking advantage for their own benefit. And the other part that I see, if you're not doing the right thing, is because if you do the right thing, you're going to take responsibility. And I see in organizations at every level and in every profession, unfortunately, including the military today, senior leaders aren't taking responsibility. They're pushing it off on other people. And you don't get to pick and choose. As a leader, you don't get to pick and choose what you're going to take responsibility for. You can't take responsibility for the good things and then say, if something bad happens, well, that's not my responsibility. I'm sorry.
Right. Dodge the heat. Yeah. That doesn't work.
No. You talk about trust. I mean, and we'll talk about trust later on, but you want to destroy the trust in your organization. Stop taking responsibility for the things in your organization.
And I've heard another concept, actually a title of another book called Extreme Ownership, where the leader takes responsibility for how his organization does, like you're saying, sir, the good and the bad, and owns it, knows their ability to influence and lead, and how that affects the actions of the organization there.
It does. Again, it all comes back to trust. You can't lead. Trust is the thing that allows leaders to lead, and it allows followers to lead that leader, to follow that leader. And if that trust is gone, then it's almost impossible to get back once you break that trust between the leader and the people they lead.
And speaking of trust, sir, what are some of the ways that a leader can build trust within an organization or a group?
Yeah, I think it all comes down to building that personal relationship. Now, you got to have the leader led relationship, and you got to keep that professional. But that doesn't mean you don't get to know the people that you have the privilege to lead. And I always tell people, I had a mentor who retired, a 3-star general, who used to tell me, Oak, never, ever turn down a chance to go get your own cup of coffee. And he said 2 things happen when you do that. First of all, you prove to the people that you're leading that you're human just like they are, no better than they are. You got to go get your own cup of coffee. Somebody's not going to bring it to you. And number 2, if you do that, and hopefully you got 1 or 2, 3 different ways to get to the coffee pot and back to your office. so that along the way you stop and talk to people, because that's how you start building trust. I tell all the young lieutenants that we commission out of this program here that I have the privilege to recruit for, that I always tell them, every day, go out and find one person in your organization and find out one new thing about them, not about work, something personal.
Yeah.
What their spouse's name is, what their kids' names are, what sports do their kids play, what's their hobby. Find one new thing out about one new person in your organization every single day, and you'll see trust start to grow in exponential form.
I've noticed that too, and I was trying to put my finger on why that is, and was one guess that came to my mind is maybe if you have a leader who can remember who your wife is or where you went on vacation, if you told that person that, then they know that you'll remember who they are or remember their best interests. But is it, you know why that works?
Because you're showing them that you care about them.
Could you try again?
And that's that helps build the trust that they know you care. You actually care, and that's not something you can fake. You can't fake that. You either they'll if you're trying to fake it, they'll figure it out very quickly. You either care about people or you don't, and it amazes me how people get into leadership positions who have proven that they don't care about people, and it just amazes me.
It really is. I've been working myself on not just learning these things, but remembering them. There's a handy little app in an iPhone, the Notes app, where you can write down.
Right.
Hey, this is
I
Joe.
use that app all the time.
Joe has 5 kids. Here are their names, and you can pull it up. So you can kind of outsource your memory a little bit. So there's ways to do this, but I've learned it's not just asking the questions, but remembering them too.
That's right. It really is. And again, it's all about taking care of people, because I'm a firm believer you can't lead from sitting behind a desk. I'm one of those people. I always tell people I lead by walking around. I want to get out and talk to people, not in my office. I don't call people into my office to talk to them, because first of all, you're never going to get the honest answer when you call them into your office and talk to them. You want an honest answer from somebody, go out where they are, where they're doing their job, and ask them questions. Now it's not the boss calling me into my office. It's the boss coming to talk to me and ask my opinion. And there's a huge difference, and you'll see the difference.
A huge difference. I've noticed that myself, being in both, being led and being a leader where I work. Is you call someone in your office, that's your territory. It gets very primal very quick.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just intimidating, more intimidating. Whereas if you're out walking around and you're in their area asking their opinion, simple questions like, is there something we can do to help that make this go better? Or is that the best way to do it? Because they're the ones who do it. They probably know a better way to do it. They've just never been asked.
So getting to know people, meeting them in their space, what are some other ways, or are there other ways to build trust in an organization and show that it's all about the people you're leading?
Yeah, there is. Just the simple things that take care of people, that show that you really do care about them. When I was a senior first lieutenant, and I was on a staff for a cavalry unit, and I was in the S3 shop. I was writing operations orders for everything that we were doing, and I had an S3 that was one of those guys who, if I'm in the office, you're in the office. And we all hate that person.
Yeah.
And this person wasn't married, so they were in the office till 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, and they expected you to be there, even if you didn't have anything important going on. If they were in the office, they expected you to be there. And morale in that S3 shop was absolutely horrible. Well, then we got a new S3. He left, thank goodness, and we got a new S3 in. And the first day he was there, I was sitting in my office. It was 5 o'clock, and I'm working on an op order that it wasn't due for a couple of weeks. And he walked by my office, 5 o'clock. He walked by my office and he stuck his head in my office. He said, "Oh, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, sir, I'm working on an op order." And he said, "Is it due tomorrow?" And I said, "No." He said, "Then go home." The morale in that organization just exploded, because we had somebody who cared. And when I remembered that, and when I took over as an S3, the first day I took over, I called everybody together and I said, "Look, just because I'm in the office doesn't mean you have to be in the office." I said, "There's going to be times when I need you to be here till 8 o'clock at night, but I'll tell you when I need you to be here at 8 o'clock at night. If I don't tell you that I need you to stick around at 5 o'clock, go home and spend time with your family or whatever it is you do after work. Don't just be in the office because I'm here."
Yeah, I like that. And it's a privilege I've had of having a couple leaders demonstrate that. And I've had the opposite be true as well, where I'm trying to think of, former squad leaders when I was in the Marine Corps who I've had the good and I have had the bad. The bad looked like, well, this is what it was like for me when I was, freshman. So you're going to have to suffer the same mindless, needless,
Yeah.
Pain because I had to. And so it's
Isn't
just
that horrible?
sharing that unnecessary hatred and pain.
Oh, it's horrible. We got to get back to understanding that it is about people and taking care of them. Another example, when I was a lieutenant, motor pool days, we were in the motor pool. When my soldiers were in the motor pool, I was in the motor pool, and when you had a tank down or a Bradley down and a part came in, you worked till it was done. I don't care if that was 10 o'clock at night, 2 o'clock in the morning, you worked. But if that happened, then I called that crew over and I said, "Okay, you're here till 10 o'clock at night." And I was there till 10 o'clock at night with them. I said, "You don't come to PT tomorrow. Come in at 8 o'clock instead of coming to PT." Little things like that make them understand that you do care about them and their life, and not just about work. Because we all, work is important, and we got to get things done, and we got to be successful. But we also have to understand that people are human and they have a life outside of work, and we got to get back to understanding that.
I believe that's correct, sir. Because there are a few jobs or people, I think it's a mix, where work is the main thing in their life that they want to do. Maybe they're not as family oriented or they don't have a family. But outside of that, a lot of us work so that we can enjoy our family, can enjoy the things in life, and helping our people we lead remember that. Because
again, we got to be successful. I mean, because results do matter. I got it, and we got to get things done. But there is a balance now. Depending on what jobs you have, in the military, balance is a little more difficult because you got things you got to do, deployments, all those things. But I always tell people, look, it always used to kill me when I'd see a 4-star general stand up on the stage and tell me about life balance. And I said, yeah, that's how you got to be 4 stars. Okay, I got it.
Right. Exactly.
But here's the point that I always make. Look, I don't care what job you have. If you have a demanding job that requires you to do lots of different things and be away from your family, that happens. And you got to do what you got to do. But when you have downtime, when you have the opportunity to let people off, to spend time with their family, then you got to take advantage of that. And as a leader, you got to understand that, and you got to make that concession and make those things happen so that people, when you do have that ability to let people off and spend time with their family and do whatever it is, unmarried people do whatever it is they do, then you got to take advantage of that and make it happen.
I found that even sometimes, sir, that I've needed to reinforce that for my staff, not just trying to dig into their personal life or overstep, but understand that if the home's being neglected, eventually work's going to be neglected and life's going to be out of balance in a lot of ways.
Yeah, people aren't as productive if they're not happy at home, if they're not happy outside of work, then they're not going to be happy at work. That's human nature. It's hard to separate when your emotions are out of whack. It's hard to okay, I'm at work now, so I got to put all that behind me.
Right.
Very few people can do that. I mean, there probably are some out there who can, but most people, if you're not happy at home, you're not going to be happy at work. And if you're not happy, you're not going to be productive. So in the end, it's to your advantage as a leader to have people who are motivated, who understand that you do trust them and that they can trust you to have their best interest at heart. That doesn't mean, when I tell people I believe in servant leadership, some people say, well, I don't, because that means you let people walk all over you. I can just tell you, nobody walks all over me. But that's not the definition of servant leadership.
No.
If you're a servant leader, there's going to be times when your people don't want to do what you're asking them to do, but you're asking them to do it in their best interest, whether they believe it's their best interest or not. Example, when I was an officer in the Army, there's standards you got to meet. And if we were out at training and we didn't meet the standards, guess what? We did it again. And I don't care if we were there till 10 o'clock at night. We did it until we met the standard. Now, if we met the standard at 3 o'clock, I had no problems letting people go off and go do something.
Right.
But you got to hold people to standard. And that's part of being a servant leader as well. Just because you're a servant leader doesn't mean you let people do whatever they want.
Right. It's servant leader, not doormat leader. And
yeah.
That distinction, that's why, your teachings and your book is so important, because a lot of these things are nuanced. And a lot of times, like you said, people can hear servant leadership and they can hear servitude and think submissiveness or being walked on, which isn't the case.
No, it's not.
Not at all. Well, I wanted to ask you, sir, can you recall or think of any examples of a leader taking care of their people and showing them it's about them and not about, the leader?
Yeah, the S3 was one of those, the guy who told us that. But, I've also had the other example where leaders didn't take care of people. When I was a lieutenant, a platoon leader, there was another platoon leader in our company, and we were talking one day, and he said to me, and we were getting ready to go to the National Training Center. We had a bunch of things going on, and he said, Sergeant so-and-so needs to go to school to get the next promotion, but we got the National Training Center coming up, so I'm going to make him push that off till after the National Training Center. And I said, really? I said, you have just destroyed all trust with that NCO if you do that to him, because you're showing him that you're more important than his life and his promotion, which is taking care of his family and becoming the better person that he can be, the most, the best that he can be. I said, that's a horrible decision. And he did it. He did it anyway. And I can just tell you that the morale in that platoon was not very good at all. And it's because that leader didn't care about he cared about himself more than he cared about the people. I won't say he didn't care about his people, but he certainly cared more about himself than he did about them.
It's sad to see that happen. And it seems like the best that can come out of a situation like that is using that as an example of what not to do.
Absolutely. Well, and we can learn just as much from somebody doing something badly than we can from somebody doing something well. And I'm sure you have been, and I know I have. I've been standing in formation and one of my leaders would say something and the hair on the back of your neck stands up and you're like, yeah, I'm never going to do that. Because you can learn, just file that back in the back of your brain. Someday when you're in charge, you remember how that made you feel and what the consequences of those bad decisions were.
And that's where I think I've benefited, sir, is looking at what didn't work. And somehow, I'm not sure how I even learned it, that it was about relationships and about people and about building that trust. It seems like maybe something I was just gifted to be brought up in that way. But when I got to my first, position of leadership as a fire team leader in an infantry squad, it was easier to build trust that way, and showing, the three guys who were under me that I cared about them by taking care of them in those ways, letting them off early when they earned it, holding them to standards, seeing how they responded to that, even when it was unpopular, and realizing that through doing so, I was actually earning their respect when they could see it was in their best interest. And, doing some simple things, putting myself last in the chow line,
Right.
putting myself last and other things, where they could benefit. So I think this is something that is so crucial to understand if you're going to be any kind of leader who's going to actually inspire people and not lead through fear.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we've all worked for that person who tries to lead through fear, and it's horrible. I mean, and the organization is not as good as it could be, because somebody who leads that way, that people will do what they're told to do, because they're afraid if they don't, they're going to get fired or whatever. But they're not going to put in that extra effort. If somebody really trusts you and understands that you have their best interest at heart, they'll go that extra mile for you. They'll do more than you're asking them to do, because they trust you. They care about the organization. They understand you care about the organization and them, and they're willing to put forth that little bit of extra effort, where they wouldn't be if you're the other type of leader, the micromanaging, authoritarian, do as I say, not as I do, and all those kinds of things. Because again, it's about example as well.
And having a couple different squad leaders that one led through fear. Yeah, I would do the minimal effort to get by, to get that person off my back. And having one who led through inspiration and was a servant leader through and through, and went out of his way to show us that he cared about us. I remember thinking, I'll follow this guy to hell and back, and in combat, and that mattered. And that mattered, and we got results. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
The people who are servant leaders, if you look at their organization, they are much more successful than somebody who is the authoritarian type leader. Now, that leader might get results and they might be successful, but the organization itself, not only for a servant leader is successful, but the people actually enjoy coming to work. They actually enjoy the other people in their organization. And they do. They're motivated. They'll give that extra little bit of effort to help the organization be successful. They'll even give up some of their own time, and they'll give up some of their own benefits, whatever, for the benefit of the organization, because they understand that it isn't just about them. You have shown them that it isn't just about them either. It's about the organization. It's about being successful. And you'll see a huge difference if you're a servant leader than if you try to be the authoritarian type.
I fully believe that, sir. And I appreciate the examples you shared with us today. And before we sign off, for those who are just tuning in, maybe for the first time, could you remind us of your book and where we can find it and how we can support what you're doing?
Yeah, so my book is available on Amazon. It's available in hardcover, paperback, ebook, and Audible. And I read the Audible book. The only other voice on there is my wife. She read the foreword and about the author.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah, because she wrote the foreword, and I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for her support and her wisdom. So, and then I'm out on the speaking circuit. So if you're looking for somebody, a keynote speaker, guest speaker to talk about leadership, then just contact me. You can go to my website, ltcoakmccullough.com, and it's got my cell phone number there, my email. Reach out to me. I'd love to come talk to your organization.
Oak, thank you so much for being on the show again. It's good to catch up with you and see you again. And I look forward to watching along as we talk about, the further chapters in your book.
Yeah, well, thanks, Mike. It was good to catch up with you as well.